has been providing opportunities for candidates seeking public office to take their case directly to the voters. The League forums are an expected part of political campaigns for every level of public office. Leagues are seen as fair, unbiased, and competent providers of services to voters. League forums are controlled by the League, not by the candidates. Next, we will list our ground rules for this forum. The ground rules were given to the candidates beforehand. Each candidate will give a 2-minute opening statement. Questions were sought through Facebook and partnership groups a month before the event in order to cover a wide variety of topics. Due to time constraints, we may not be able to ask every question submitted. Questions become the property of the League and cannot be returned or discussed after tonight. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Our timekeeper, Lisa Hansen, whose Zoom is denoted as timekeeper, will change colors of her Zoom tile. The tile will be green at the onset of the question, change to yellow to warn the speaker when 30 seconds remain, and will change to red when time is up. The speaker must immediately conclude her remarks. Time limits are closely followed to ensure fairness to all candidates. Speakers' mics will be muted if they run over their allotted time frame. We will conclude with 1.5-minute closing statements by each candidate. The format for tonight is question and answer. There will not be any rebuttals. What you hear tonight from the candidates is their perspective on the question. Now I will address our candidates. If you would like me to repeat the question, please just ask. Also, do not feel that you need to use the entire 1.5 minutes to reply. This is not a town meeting, so comments from the audience will not be accepted. So now you know the format. Please meet the candidates running for the Mayor of Moline position, Stephanie Acri and Sangeetha Rayapati. Prior to the start of this forum, the order of speaking was determined by drawing of lots. Our speaker order is for opening statements is as follows. Our first candidate is Stephanie Acri, followed by Sangeetha Rayapati. Stephanie, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thank you all for joining the discussion. And thank you, LULAC and Greater Quad City Hispanic Chamber and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I'm Stephanie Acri. I'm the mother of 3. I'm a mechanical engineer and a business owner. And I have been honored to serve Moline residents for 10 years, the first 6 as Alderman at Large, and for the past 4 years as mayor. I've delivered on the promises of my 2017 campaign of increased transparency, improved infrastructure, and support to our business partners. This follow-through has meant 2 things for Moline residents. First, more jobs and opportunities to prosper in Moline. Second, as good stewards of your tax dollars, we've put money back in your pocket by cutting the city's debt and tax rate. We've kept our promises of the last 4 years, and because of hard work together, we're ready to move into the next chapter of Moline's bright future. I'm asking for your vote for Mayor of Moline.
Thank you, Stephanie. Sangeetha, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Janessa. When I ran for school board 4 years ago, I asked the voters of Moline to entrust me with their most precious possessions, their children. Now I'm asking you to entrust me with something equally vital to your lives, your futures. And on April 6th, we can vote for positive change or vote for more of the same. And more of the same, in my opinion, is a dangerous option. We continue to lose residents to other cities. We have lost population for all of the 10 years my opponent has served in public office. Businesses create growth elsewhere, and more communities are benefiting from our talented staff. Our city looks like an unreliable partner, and our community cannot risk more of the same approach. I can't put all the blame on my opponent, but her actions and priorities have worsened our community's image and planted harmful seeds for our future. The atmosphere of fear and intimidation cultivated towards staff at City Hall, snubbing local talent, sending our dollars to Chicago firms, and constantly picking public fights with community partners are part of a leadership style that doesn't work. So, I believe my record is one of collaboration, listening, setting goals, and reaching them by empowering those who implement plans. It's one of careful stewardship of public funds and development of facilities and programs that attract and retain residents, and staff. That's the approach I've taken as president of the school board, and that's the approach I'll take as mayor of Moline. I'm excited to get to work.
Thank you, Sangeetha. We begin the questions now and will vary the order starting with Stephanie Acri. The next reply will be given by Sangeetha Rayapati. So, Stephanie, the first question will go to you. What are your plans to help the City of Moline residents and businesses move forward with COVID mitigations?
Oh, so it's been such a challenging time. We think about what it was like a year ago, and it was full of unknowns. And as we worked through it, the city we had to be really, really clever about how we supported our businesses. So all sorts of things were coming at our businesses, different grants, different loans, and it was really hard for them to navigate. And so we had a technology partner that I worked with to develop a program called Forward. And what it did was it helped businesses navigate to the loans and grants and payment deferrals that applied to their type of business. So that helped minimize the overwhelming trying to figure out which one applies to them. And so we're continuing to use that platform. We set up every Moline business in that platform with their profiles so that they wouldn't have to do that. But we continue to use that platform as we continue to develop ways to support our businesses. Once we get through the pandemic, there's going to be a long recovery, and we want to partner with them and continue to help them in that recovery. It's so much better to support an existing business than to try to start a new business. And so we want to make sure that our existing businesses have the support that we can provide to them.
Thank you, Stephanie. The next question will go to Sangeetha, the same one. What are your plans to help the City of Moline residents and businesses move forward with COVID mitigations?
Thank you, Janessa. It's really important that we maintain a sense of creativity with our response to the pandemic. People have had to really stretch for ways that they can evolve as a business. They've had to get creative about hours and delivery methods, and we really need to make sure we have the support staff in place for those people. As some of the alderman candidates mentioned earlier, we have not had an economic development director since April of 2019. And that puts the burden of this work, this really, really important work, on fewer staff. And I want to make sure that job is done well. And so we need to empower the staff that's in charge, especially when we do have an economic development director, to really help those businesses and create relationships, foster the relationships that have already started. I'm very interested in doing a kind of close the gap measure, right? These smaller businesses, especially the micro businesses that may not have qualified for some of the grants and loans, or chose to pull back because there are only one or two people run the business, and so they didn't apply. I have spoken with some of those business owners. We really need to find out what they need. And we can't only do it with apps. We need human beings to help us navigate through these measures. I also am a former nurse. I worked as a nurse for 3 years, and I'm very concerned about the health of our community. And so I think we can't only be thinking about economics in terms of business. We need to make sure that the health of our community stays stable throughout this recovery so that we don't walk backwards. And that's the kind of decision making I've brought to the school district with our plans, and I'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Sangeetha. So now, since we asked the first question to Stephanie, Sangeetha, this will be your opportunity to answer the second question. So what should the role of Western Illinois University Quad Cities campus be?
Yes, this is a really important question for the future of Moline. Western Illinois University is first and foremost an educational institution. It needs to provide a quality education for our residents and the surrounding communities. We have to remember, Western Illinois does not only serve Moline students, it serves this entire region. And it can't be seen as the linchpin in our economic development plans. It is a piece of the puzzle. And so we first need to make sure it's on the right footing to provide that educational experience. Any of the economic benefits that come to us as a community because they are located here, or any institution is located here, that needs to be seen as a benefit, an addition to what they already do. But they can't be the driver of everything. That's the city's job, to drive economic development. I really think that the public fight that's taken place recently is unfortunate. It doesn't speak well for our community. And I really am concerned that we're going to see the same kind of don't like something, change them out for someone new that we've seen with our city administrators happen with our educational institutions. That's not good for our community. Students need stable institutions. They need stability in their educational programs. And we need to do everything we can within our power to make sure that we're offering that. There are other variables at play that have an impact on what Western Illinois University can provide.
Thank you, Sangeetha. Stephanie, we will pose to you the same question. What should the role of Western Illinois University Quad Cities campus be?
It is a very important part of our dream. So collectively, we established the dream years ago for a river tech corridor. And that, that was a dream that came from a request from our very important employers in the Quad Cities. They're looking for a pipeline of technical degrees that can come into those businesses and support their work. And that's really important for all of us. When families choose where they're going to live, they want to come to a community that their children will have great educational opportunities. And we as a community want to provide those higher education opportunities to try to retain those individuals, so they want to raise their families here as well. So I see it as a very critical thing. And I don't view it as a public fight. I view it as a public conversation. When you believe in transparency, you're going to have these conversations behind closed doors. We as a community need to talk about what are our priorities, what's acceptable to us, and what's not acceptable to us. And I think that although I think most of us understood that it wasn't prospering the way that we had hoped, I don't think we understood that the freshman headcount was down to 4 this semester. I don't think that we understood as a community really how bad it had gotten. And it was struggling before the pandemic came too. I mean, we were under 50 freshmen for a couple of years. And we want to provide educational opportunities for our young people, but if they're not getting those, we need to think about what we can do to help support our young people to get those opportunities. Here in the Quad Cities, we don't want them to go out of town.
Thank you, Stephanie. So now, Stephanie, we will ask you the next question first. How would you work with the rest of the Illinois Quad Cities to cut down on administrative overhead by combining services, not governments, but services, so that they are more efficient and less costly?
We talk about that all the time. I think that people would be surprised at how much time the mayors spend with each other, and we spend with the group of city administrators. I mean, we're in constant conversations, and we talk about, what we can do to support each other. So there's all sorts of great support things set up when we have an emergency. If we have a fire in Moline, our neighboring communities come to support keeping our residents safe, and we do the same for them. It's the same with our police department. So they do a great job of supporting each other in the extreme situations, but we do it other ways too. Like our city water goes to East Moline residents in some neighborhoods, and East Moline takes care of our sewer from some of our residential areas. That happens all the time. And so we're constantly having the conversation. Like it was brought up in one of the candidates said something about the health inspector. Now, we don't have health inspectors, but we have environmental health specialists. It's a different kind of support position. But we talk about how important that position is, because it is more convenient for our businesses to have an expectation of how their inspections are going to happen. And we want to be consistent from community to community. So we're talking right now about how our neighboring communities and Moline can provide a more consistent inspection, so that when people, like there's a food truck truck that's going to be in East Moline one day and in Moline the next, that they can understand what is expected of them consistently. So there's all sorts of great opportunities to collaborate, and we look for more every day.
Thank you, Stephanie. So Sangeetha, we will ask you the same question. How would you work with the rest of the Illinois Quad Cities to cut down on administrative overhead by combining services, not governments, but services, so that they are more efficient and less costly?
Yes, getting our budget right really does mean taking a really close look at where we can find these efficiencies. And I think it's a very complicated task, because anytime you're looking to have a service provided from another organization, you have to look at your labor agreements. How would those be impacted? What kind of promises would you be breaking if you changed that? But you also have to look at the roles of different positions in different cities. So for example, we have no animal control officer. We need a community service officer. And that might look different in another community. How do you bring those two together? That takes a lot of time. And we've been waiting on this position for a while. So I applaud any staff that has been able to come up with a temporary fix, some kind of solution for that. But we shouldn't have to be going from Band-Aid fix to Band-Aid fix. We need to get it right and have some consistency. And so my opponent mentioned consistency among the health inspections. That's a wonderful idea, but we also just have to offer the service. And so, waiting for an outsourced health inspector can really damage a business from getting off the ground. And we want to see that growth happen. Also, she mentioned the firefighters and the police services. We have gone into an agreement. It's called the QCOM, but actually some of the council wanted to get out of that agreement. So I think that has not happened. They've renegotiated the terms, but that's of concern to me, that we would find ways to work together with our neighbors and then want to pull away. Moline can't afford to do that. So we have to take a real close look at right sizing all of our staff. The other thing is administration. We added an administrator role based on GovHR recommendations, and I'm wondering why we're doing that and not right sizing some of our other staff positions we need.
Thank you, Sangeetha. Sangeetha, the next question will be posed to you first. If the city of Moline were to receive a grant of $1 million and be used in any way that the mayor wanted, what would you do with that money if you were elected?
Gifts like that, they don't just come along every day. That is an amazing opportunity. And, it would be really tempting to do something flashy with that, that draws attention to our community. It's also really important for us to be very, very practical with gifts like that. And one thing that concerns me as a leader is if we have deferred maintenance on any of our structures, any of our infrastructure, things that we put off because we need to use the money somewhere else. So I think I would want to definitely take an inventory on what kinds of deferred maintenance could we get done so that we're still functioning to the best of our ability. Then I would look at debt. I'm wondering where my opponent's getting her numbers from, because the numbers that are available only speak to that 24 million only speaks to a certain portion of debt. General obligation bonds for government activities. It's not taking into account the full total debt sum. So we might need to look there. What dent could $1 million make in so many millions of dollars of debt? And then finally, I would prioritize the flashy projects that could really help our residents.
Thank you, Sangeetha. Stephanie, we will pose to you the same question. If the city of Moline were to receive a grant of $1 million and be used in any way that the mayor wanted, what would you do with that money if you were elected?
Okay, so I totally know what I'd do with this money. There was a proposal by Metronet. I think probably people in the community know about it. So they're a high-speed internet provider, and they came to Moline and they touted that they're really good at providing internet service to hard-to-serve areas. So we were very excited about having some competition. By the time it came to city council, there was a map attached to the proposal, and that map carved out our Floreciente neighborhood and also some of the Stevens Park neighborhood. And we talked to them and tried to explain why that wasn't a suitable solution for our community. If you carve out a certain area because you didn't view it as being as financially profitable as the rest of the community, you have impacted property values, not only for those neighborhoods, but for the entire community. I mean, it's a really, the communities that go into those agreements, it's really short-sighted because we want to provide equitable, high quality services to our entire community. So in lieu of pursuing our relationship with Metronet, we went back out and request proposals from other providers, and we are evaluating those right now. We believe that we're going to have to incentivize or help support, financially offset some of the investments so that we can provide service to our entire community. And I would put that $1 million towards that, because it's a digital equity is the most important utility, and the internet is the most important utility that is needed right now. So that's how I'd invest it.
Thank you, Stephanie. So Stephanie will ask you the next question first. How do you plan to address the city employee brain drain? Why do people want to work for the city?
So I would address it by the city employee brain gain. We have recruited some amazing people. So anybody that interacts with the city, you probably come across Chief Galt. He has transformed our police department. I'm so proud of what they've accomplished during a very challenging time across the nation. They've just done a wonderful job of integrating social services. You know, there's space in the police department where we have social services. They've invested in a community trailer that we'll all get to enjoy this spring. They've just done a really nice job. That's Chief Galt's leadership. Chief Snyder, he's done an amazing job with our fire department. They're coming on Tuesday with a presentation of using technology to improve the efficiency and ease and accuracy of inspections. We have Carol Barnes, who's done an amazing job with our budget. You know, she's provided a whole new level of insight for us, the council members, the elected officials, of what the financials are, so we can make good decisions for the residents that we represent. We've got Eric in the Parks Department. He's introducing a wonderful pickleball court complex, I guess you call it. That'll be available this summer. You know, all those people are new. Janine Parr, if anybody interacts with the city clerk, I mean, you love her the minute you talk to her because she's professional, intelligent, and responsive. And then we, on the other hand, we also introduced some new positions like Jeff Manis in the downtown area. That was something that we created because we felt like we needed to better connect with those small businesses in our downtown. And he has done an amazing job. He's come up with all sorts of fantastic things for our businesses and residents downtown.
Thank you, Stephanie. So Stephanie, we will ask you or Sangeetha, sorry, we will allow you the time to go ahead and answer the same question. How do you plan to address the city employee brain drain? Why would people want to work for the city?
Yeah, this is a wonderful question. I really think that the way we stop this brain drain is by reevaluating what our roles are as elected officials and what the roles are for our administrative staff. When those lines get muddied, it really creates chaos for our staff members. They can't serve 9 or 10 masters. They need to serve the one master of the city administrator. And so clearly defining roles will help the organization function better. I also think, again, I have talked about right-sizing staff quite often. I realize that is a difficult task given the pressures on municipal budgets. But we can't continue to work with a skeletal staff because we have other priorities that we think are more important. Because when you do that, as many of us know, I've done shift work as a nurse. I also now I have a different kind of work, but we know that you can't wear 2 or 3 hats because someone has left and we've chosen as a council not to fill that position. So we really have to make this a place where the workload is manageable and people can really do their best work.
Thank you, Sangeetha. So Sangeetha, now we will give you the opportunity to answer the next question first. What kind of plan do you have to include diverse perspectives into the future of Moline?
I love this question. And, you know, I want to make sure everyone at the outset knows that when we talk about diverse perspectives, we're not just talking about race and ethnicity. We're talking about people who come from different economic backgrounds, maybe people who are from Moline or those who are transplants to Moline. You know, we can gain new perspectives from a variety of people and their experiences. And so I really think that we need to take a long, hard look at what we're going to reach back to the community and create relationships that are beyond business relationships, right? We have an ordinance for a human rights commission that was passed in 2002. And since 2015, we have no minutes and no notice that any of those positions on that commission have been filled. And that commission is there to provide a tool to communicate with all kinds of people in our community. It's not just a place where you can bring a complaint. It is meant to let different parts of our community know about opportunities. And I think we need to get real serious about making a rubric that will help us, maybe that comes from my education background, but making a rubric that helps us decide who sits on important committees that do the work of the city. That way we're going to get a lot more diverse voices at the table. But I think it does also start with change from the top. And we do have some diverse voices that are running for these open positions. So those would be my top ideas.
Thank you, Sangeetha. Stephanie, we will allow you time to answer the same question. What kind of plan do you have to include diverse perspectives into the future of Moline?
You know, I can tell you from my own perspective. When I ran for mayor, I was the first female mayor to be elected, and you know, frankly, I think that there are still some feelings of discomfort in having a female mayor, and so I think it's something that we need to talk about and work on every day. How do we make people that are different than who historically has run this community? How do we encourage them to get involved? How do we make them feel comfortable when they do take that chance and get involved? And so it's a conversation and it's an effort that we need to be focused on every day. I think one of the ways that I work towards that is I work very hard to connect with people that I wouldn't normally run into. I own a machine shop. I work in a machine shop. I am with machine shop people all day long, but I get out of that place and I go into other places to try to make sure that people understand that I want their voice. I want their voice when we're trying to make decisions at the city council level. We've done a lot of work to improve transparency at City Hall so that people are familiar with what goes on there and the ways that they can serve in different roles, and when I meet somebody and they express some interest in it, I encourage them to look at the different committees that are available and let me know, where's your passion? Because I'm not just going to put somebody on a committee just because it'll diversify the committee. I need to find people that have passions for those areas and let them do their amazing work that they care about.
Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie, the next question will go to you first. Can you address how you will work to make our community more equitable, especially in terms of resources provided to neighborhoods, equally and within the police departments?
That's a great question. So like I talked about earlier with the high speed, high quality internet, we are working towards that. And we recognize the value of digital equity across our community. We've done some other things. When we got COVID funding, we had the opportunity to invest it however we wanted to. We could have invested in, police staffing, but we were able to finance that ourselves. So we carved out some of that COVID-19 funding that we got to help support digital equity in some low income areas. And so we partnered with the school system. They had some students that didn't have access to internet, but were learning remotely. And that's a challenge if you don't have internet. And so we work with those families, and we took their bills on ourselves so that they didn't have to worry about paying their back bills, so that those students could get internet service. We did the same thing with Project Now. So, it's not just our school age children that have that struggle. It's our seniors. So low income seniors that needed to telehealth, that needed to figure out a way to pay their bills safely. We provided devices and internet service to our low income seniors through Project Now. The same with our Head Start families. So it's not just the Head Start students, it's the entire family, providing internet and devices so that, the mom can pay her bills, the dad can look for a job, the student can connect with his Head Start support. And so all of those things are very, very critical. And so those are some of the ways that I address that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Sangeetha, we will allow you time to answer the same question. Can you address how you will work to make our community more equitable, especially in terms of resources provided to neighborhoods, equally and within the police departments?
Yeah. Equity, I just answered a portion of this kind of question today at a community conversation we held for the school district. People wanted to know what the school board's definition of equity was. And my contribution was that equity equals access. Access to the things we need to live the life we want to live. And so any kind of community supports that we can invest in, that we can work with our community partners in, that's the kind of thing I want to invest in. I know, though, that again, it brings us back to staffing, that places like Bridgepoint 485 that house social services, a variety of different groups, they need consistent staff to go to with the city to make those collaborations work. And so we really need to look at that consistency and that helping hand that the city can have for those agencies. It also impacts what we're doing with our infrastructure. The Americans with Disability Act, the only form of handicap accessibility I can find on our website has to do with just filing a grievance related to the ADA. I don't see how we're offering closed captioning on our public meetings. Have we ever looked at having a sign language for those that need it? Especially with an aging population, we really need to look at our sidewalks, all the transitions from roads to sidewalks if we want to promote healthy living. There are all kinds of ADA related equity issues that we could be addressing, and I would like to take a look at that. Lastly, we have to make sure we have jobs and opportunity for everyone in our community.
Thank you, Sangeetha. Sangeetha, the next question will go to you first. What is your plan to get a timelier snow removal process in neighborhood streets, not just main streets, if elected as mayor?
One of the things that I am known for in my job is that I'm constantly revising the courses that I teach. I constantly look for better ways to do things. And I think it's really important to not keep a small lens just on our community and what resources we have. We need to go out and look at how other communities do this. Just yesterday, or was it Tuesday, I had a listening post, which is something I've committed to do that work of reaching back to our community and hearing from them. It was online, and one of the participants said, I lived in Silvis for years and they know how to clear our streets. I know it's a tough job. I know we have limited resources, but I think we can learn from our neighbors about what their processes are. And we have a unique opportunity now that we will need to fill a public works director position to have a new conversation about the best ways to do that. I truly believe we need to depend on professional expertise and use the skills that we have. I'm proud of the skills of asking really good questions to get to the answers that we need. So learning from others' examples and taking advantage of the opportunity we have in front of us to create a new plan. But definitely we can't have knee-jerk reactions and spend money without knowing what we're spending.
Thank you, Sangeetha. Stephanie, we will allow you time to answer the same question. What is your plan to get a timelier snow removal process in neighborhood streets, not just main streets, if elected as mayor?
So I think probably everybody that's listening in remembers the snow event at the end of December. It was a very challenging snow event. It was heavy, it was wet, and then it froze. And so when that happened, people were hindered from getting to work. I mean, they couldn't even get out of their driveways in some cases. And so we as leaders recognize that, you know, we need to be able to do better. And so I got in a snowplow and I rode with one of our great snowplow drivers and got some insight about, you know, what they're experiencing, what they need in order to be effective in their job. And so when you start looking at what was happening, the reality of it was that over time, the snowplow drivers had become kind of siloed. So there were other departments that have been supporting that snow removal effort that had kind of been put off to the side. We actually have 100 CDL licensed employees at the city of Moline. Isn't that shocking? But anyway, so we had all of this great equipment. We had 30 pieces of equipment for snow removal. That first snow event, we only had about 15 of the pieces of equipment out. We needed to increase the utilization of the equipment we already had. And so what we did was we declared an emergency order so that we could get all the resources and everybody understood what we were trying to accomplish, and brought in those other drivers from the other departments to man the equipment. And it was an amazing difference. I mean, it was night and day. One of the tricks of snow removal is to get it off the streets as quickly as possible. If you don't get it off the streets, it gets packed down and it's very difficult to remove. So if anybody had a grader come by their house, that's because that snow was packed down and a snowplow can't get it up anymore. So that's really important. And we executed that way for the rest of the snow season. It was very effective. We also partnered with a couple of our great union contractors that had some specialty equipment. We have an unusual number of cul-de-sacs and dead ends in Moline, and it's very difficult to manage the pile of snow. And we had a lot of snow this year. And so they were a great help to us, but really it was using our own resources and getting them out there and addressing the snow as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie, the next question will go to you first. What steps will you take to increase citizen participation in local government, both in terms of educating people on what is going on in the city and encouraging volunteerism in our community?
So that's a great question. And I think it's about transparency. I mean, that's the way I see it, is that people don't even know what they don't know, right? So we need to have all of these public conversations, like the Western Illinois University. That shouldn't be happening in a back room somewhere. We as a community should be talking about that challenge. Some of the things that go on in City Hall that have hit the front page, that's not an accident. That's transparency. That's your representatives welcoming you into the conversation so that we all understand and have a common understanding of the facts, the decisions that are being made on your behalf, so that we can talk about, you know, is that the right decision? Do you want to do something differently next time? You know, what's happening? It's not a secret. It's the taxpayers' money. They need to know where it goes. They need to know how it's invested, and they need to have a voice in how it's invested. And so some really good things have happened lately, and like the online meetings. So, you know, not only, I mean, still you're busy on Tuesday night, you don't want to come down to City Hall. You could figure out what's going on just by watching the council meeting at your convenience. That was something that should have happened years ago, but it was really hard to get get done. It was just kind of crazy because we had never done it before. So it was, there were some barriers there of we just never done it that way. But I think things like that, helping people feel comfortable and familiar with what's going on, and then they can see, like me, when I was appointed as an alderman, you get involved and then it's kind of exciting because you can do things that impact people's lives. And it's really rewarding work. It's really interesting work. And I would encourage everybody to get involved.
Thank you, Stephanie. Sangeetha, you can answer the same question. So what steps will you take to increase citizen participation in local government, both in terms of educating people about what is going on in the city and encouraging volunteerism in our community?
Yeah, I'm going to lead by example. And one of those examples is the community conversations that I mentioned earlier in an earlier answer. We started that just about 2 years ago, a bit after I took over as president of the school board, because I knew it was important for families, community members to understand the kinds of conversations that the school district has. We can't mistake the proper following of HR policy or board policy or council ordinances for trying to be secretive. That transparency is bringing people in, but always maintaining our fidelity to the laws that we are governed by. So I really think that those kinds of opportunities, the listening posts I've committed to at least once a quarter, and reaching back to the community, not for them to come to us to share their experiences, is how we do that, because we don't exist in a vacuum. For sometimes, when you're used to a system, you've been involved in it for a long time, you kind of forget that there are other people that that might have something to say about the processes and the discussions that are going on. And if ourselves to a pattern of reaching back, I think we will help people understand what their government is here to do, and that's to provide for the life, health, and safety of all of our residents. So I'm excited to lead by example, and especially with volunteerism as well.
Thank you, Sangeetha. Sangeetha, you'll get the chance to answer our last question first, and that is, what do you love about Moline?
Oh, what a wonderful note to end on. I have said my campaign is about people, possibilities, and progress. I love the people of Moline. I've seen them come through in some of the most difficult situations. For example, the fire at Franklin Elementary School. Oh my gosh, did people come to the aid of the district then, offering buildings, offering supplies, all kinds of fundraising. They come to the aid of students who need things, a student who needed a heart transplant. It was an amazing community response. We are really good at helping each other out. And I think we need to capitalize on that spirit in Moline. And just continue to do that kind of thing. I also love the possibilities of Moline. As I've said before, the promise of Moline. We have an amazing location. We have great opportunities for sports and leisure, culture, the arts. There is something for everyone in this community. And I think we need to do a better job of sharing that and really getting people to come and stay in Moline.
Thank you, Sangeetha. Stephanie, you'll get the chance to answer the same question. What do you love about Moline?
So that's an easy question for me to answer. When I graduated from school, I came to the Quad Cities for work. I've lived in Moline since I was 23 years old, I guess. I came to the Quad Cities when I was 22. But I came here, I didn't have any family here. And I mean, Moline's beautiful. The ravines are lovely. The river is wonderful. It's a good place to work. But I fell in love when this community helped me raise my children. I have 3 kids, and a big portion of their childhood, I was a single mom, and it's hard. It's hard to be a single mom. It's hard when you're worried about where your kids are and getting them to one place or another. And this community stepped up, and it's been my family, and I just couldn't appreciate it more. I love it more.
Well, those conclude all of our questions for this evening. So thank you to both of our candidates for their participation tonight and their willingness to run for this important office. We wish you the best of luck. We will now conclude with our closing statement. We thank our sponsors, the AAUW, American Association of University Women, the Greater Quad Cities Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, LULAC, League of United Latin American Citizens, Republican Women of Rock Island County, the Rock Island County Democratic Women's Club, and our league team members. We thank you, the audience, for tuning in tonight and remind you to vote on April 6th. Thank you, and everyone have a good night.
Thank you.